Are you troubled the FBI's failure to stop the Boston bombers and 9/11 attacks?
I think the problem, let me do 9/11 first. The big mistake we made, and it was under, as I understand it, Jamie Gorelick was Deputy Attorney General under Bill Clinton. She's the one who called me and said, we're doing a special counsel on Whitewater, would you be interested? And I said, well, Jamie, I'm a Republican running for governor of Oklahoma. She said, well, that won't do. And, we all had a good laugh. But she, as I understand, separated intelligence from criminal investigations. You can't do that. Now, admittedly, the intelligence piece you couldn't use to prosecute somebody, but you certainly could use it to investigate what's going on to stop a terrorist event. But to have the intelligence people and the criminal investigators sharing information is essential. And apparently there's some of that again that's going back to that. I think that's a mistake because, the gumshoes, if you will, the intelligence folks are picking up stuff that a criminal investigator needs to know and vice versa, So I think that's something that has to be taken a look at.
But just jumping to the Boston bombers, the Russian government, they basically call up the United States, the FBI, and says, these two brothers, the Sarnovs brothers, they're trouble. You really shouldn't let them in. You have to be really careful. Almost nothing was done. And if you look at the transcript of the FBI interview, it was surprising. What's your opinion?
See, I think that's a very good question and a really concerning question because at the time, I was obviously an outsider as a citizen, as all of us, watching what occurred. And then when someone said, the Russians provided this information that these guys were bad guys, well, I'm sure there are thousands of pieces of information about so-and-so is a bad guy and so-and-so is a bad girl. You have to cull it and figure out, well, why is this more serious than that? You can miss when you're, plowing through allegations such as that involving a former, was a Soviet bloc citizen. Right. I'll leave it at that. But I'm just saying, I think they should have followed up. But that's where Congress comes in. Why has there been no investigation by Congress, an oversight committee of Department of Justice, to say, how did we miss and how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? I don't know if they ever did that or not. I'm not aware of it if they did. Mm-hmm. But could this be just dumbing out? Could this be negligence? Could this be gross negligence to the point of corruption? I don't know.
What do you think of President Trump?
Well,
I saved the elephant in the room for the end.
Yeah. Can I have a lawyer here to answer this one? Well, I got to tell you a story. This is anecdotally, but it's true. My twin brother, as I mentioned, my Marine Corps twin brother, chaired the campaign, and we wrote dueling editorials in one of the newspapers in Oklahoma. But, of course, as a twin, his birthday is my birthday, and we had dinner together with my older brother. And Dan said, when are you going to sign up, Frank? And this was like February of last year. I said, sign up for what? And he said, for the Trump campaign. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I mean, I didn't know he was the chairman. I said, you can tell I'm a little Catholic boy. I said, been married 3 times, bankrupted 4 times, in the casino business. What good ever came out of a casino? That's not a business. That's a syndicate. And he was in the golf course development business. I said, is that the private sector? I mean, I said, a bunch of you rich friends, have a golf course. And they all looked at each other and shook their heads. And they said, Frank, you've been in D.C. too long. So, I got to say, I voted for him because I thought Mrs. Clinton would appoint atrociously bad, ultra-liberal judges. So, I mean, and Ed Meese, former Attorney General, and I were the 2 Reagan alumni for Trump co-chairman. So I came aboard at the end, but I've been, and still am, very disturbed. Ronald Reagan I worked for, and George H.W. Bush. And I've done a number of children's books for Simon & Schuster on, leading American figures. Humility is the most important attribute of public service, because, when I became U.S. Attorney, the first meeting I had, I was 37 years old. First meeting I had was in the conference room had a big jury table of my office. And when I walked in, I said, I'm going to sit in the middle of the rectangle as a statement that I'm no better than you all. Anybody here, I'm maybe in charge, but I'm just one of you. I sat in the middle and everybody else pulled their chair up on the other side. They didn't look at it that way. And the government is that way. You may be a civilian, but it's a pyramidal system. You sit in this chair, the next meeting that chair is empty. I mean, that's just the way it is. So if you're president and you say the sun rises in the west, everybody heads to the window to look out and see, in fact, if it does. And that's worrisome. You have to have humility and distance and you know, and Mr. Trump doesn't have a whole lot of humility. That's what worries me. But I hope he's a roaring success, like I hoped President Obama was, because he's the only president we got.